Hello and welcome to the Wildfire PR Podcast, where we'll be talking all things tech PR. This month, Wildfire has launched our new research study, CMO Decoded, and here to talk me through the findings is Wildfire's Head of Insights and Strategy, Ben Smith. Hello, Ben.
Nice to see you.
So we've just launched CMO Decoded. Tell me a bit about what is it? What is the Decoded series? What does this mean?
So Decoded is our bespoke audience research and insights program. We want to know as much as we possibly can about the audiences that our clients and tech brands should care about when they're trying to sell to them. We want to know their views on the world. Are they positive, optimistic or not? Are they increasing spending or not? But specifically as well, then digging into what do they actually want from people who are trying to sell technology services and products to them. Really understanding what's good, what's not. And trying to be as comprehensive as possible in finding out all of that information.
Yeah, so how many CMOs is it that we've sort of surveyed and spoken to?
So for this one, we have spoken to 100 UK-based CMOs of companies of various sizes, predominantly at larger organisations. We've just tried to find out as much as we can about them.
Nice. So, I mean, I know that you're here today to talk to us about what those findings are. I had a bit of a sneak peek and a look through. One of the things that stood out to me the most was there's sort of a bit of a gap to my mind between what tech brands and tech suppliers are saying in their marketing and possibly what CMOs are actually looking for. Is there anything more you can tell us about that?
The gap is absolutely real. The data is fairly clear on that point. I think it's fair to say. What marketers are looking for from the technology brands they want to buy from or partner with, pretty straightforward, really. They want to work with people who are genuine experts in their field. They've said they want to work with people who are actual thought leaders in the industry that they're working in. Talking about plus 90% of marketers saying that that's what they're looking for. So I don't think that's controversial. But when we look at the other side, are tech brands meeting them in the middle and doing what they would want to do and showing the things they want to show? That picture is murkier. Just have some key stats here. Just 63% of marketers think that the tech brands are focusing too much on the technicalities of their products. They're not really talking about business problems and how they're addressing those. The messaging is too technical or making things sound more complicated than they need to be. And fundamentally, there is a lack of differentiation, I guess. They're saying, more than 50% of marketers think that all tech brands basically look the same.
Wow. Okay. I mean, one of the other things that stood out for me was you had a list of what are the traits, the specific traits that CMOs want from suppliers, and number one on that list was trust. As if I was a MarTech brand or an ad tech brand or a retail tech brand, anyone selling to a CMO, what does that really mean for me? To be more trusted.
I think it's a really interesting finding to come out. Maybe not a surprising finding, but I think it's an interesting, and I would actually combine it. One of the other characteristics that came out in the top three was actually friendliness, or maybe approachableness is a better word. And I would combine those two. I think, looking at a lot of the other data, generally speaking, marketers are pretty positive. They think that their roles, their marketing as a discipline is in a good place and is got a good future. They're expecting their businesses that they're working for to grow in the near term. So they're pretty optimistic. At the same time, though, they are reporting much higher levels of stress for them personally, for their teams. There's this increased pressure coming from the board and the C-suite to deliver more results for the business. So I think that trusted and that approachableness should be calibrated to those facts ultimately. It's not about the classic fear, uncertainty, and doubt is not the winning hand when it comes to talking to marketers. That's not going to resonate with them because that's not how they see the world.
Okay.
It's much more about showing that you share their optimism, you share their vision for the future, but also in an understanding way, that it's not just, hey, we can just turn the money taps on and do whatever we want. There are pressures. Absolutely, there are pressures, and I think it's about showing that you understand that and that you have designed your service, your product to account for that, and really just showing that you can walk a mile in their shoes, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a little bit of a PR focused question, but just more generally, like, what actually is trust? How do you build trust with these people? Like, it's very easy to say we're going to become a trusted brand, but it's like, what does that mean?
It was a fairly clear answer to that question from the research, actually. It really comes down to proof. That's the word I would use. Obviously, that can take many forms, whether that is customer case studies. Where have you done this for a company like mine or a CMO like me? That's a real big tick in the box. If you can demonstrate that, that's going to get you a long way on the road to being trusted.
Not always the easiest, though, to get customer case studies.
Absolutely.
I know they are sort of gold dust, but yeah.
And we all know that. And the really strong customer case studies, the best brands that you work with as a technology company are often the ones who are least likely to want to share that publicly.
Yeah.
We all understand that. But there are other ways of delivering that proof. I think if you look at things like just data of the efficacy of your own platform, so that could be internal data that you can publicize about ROI, whatever it might be, but also more generally than that, these technologies don't exist in a vacuum. They've all been designed, in theory, to solve a problem. So show what that problem actually is. Find the data and the evidence that proves that this is a real problem that most marketers are experiencing. Put it in their language. Show them that you really do understand their world. That can be proof as well. It doesn't have to just be, we've done this for a million other companies, look at all of our whizzy results. It can just be proof that we're not just doing, this isn't technology for technology's sake. That's really important, I think, in terms of building trust.
Yeah. I mean, I've got I've literally got the report open here and like some of the stats on it. So, as you say, 67% want trusted suppliers. I think it is really interesting that, I mean, you mentioned about case studies, but like clear data and evidence ranks as number one, 63%, and then strong industry presence ranked as second. So just being out there in the world and making your presence known.
Don't hide in the shadows. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really, but those are both factors. With the specific question was that build credibility in your mind in a tech vendor. So credibility is a key word. So yeah, you can't just have a website and assume that people will find you, and once they land on your website, they're going to agree with everything you say.
Yeah.
You have to be out there, and you have to be moving beyond assertions. I think that's the key word for me. Like, it's so easy to say, this is a problem, we have the solution, our product is great.
Yeah.
Well done. Do you want a medal?
It's not the most compelling thing in the world, is it?
You have to go deeper than that. You have to show more than that in order for people to buy into what you're selling.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned in there about it's not enough just to have a website. One of the things I wanted to pick up on from the report was content in particular and the sort of different types of content. And is there anything that stood out in terms of the content that is earning CMO attention, that is getting noticed, that is getting engaged with by CMOs more than others? I mean, I know from my experience working with a lot of MarTech and AdTech brands that obviously it's a mixture. You have to have a sort of marketing mix of all these different things. But is there anything that you would say prioritize, deprioritize?
It was pretty clear and quite linked to what we were just saying. Number one was data about the industry.
Right, yeah.
People... I don't think this is unique to marketers necessarily, but they're there, they're in their organization, they've got their goals and their targets and they're head down and they're focused. do they have the time to go out and look at what's happening in the rest of the market and to see what their competitors and their peers are doing? Probably not. Maybe some of them do, but most of them probably don't. So anything you can do to help fill in those blanks and see where they could improve. I think there was a really telling piece of data that came back from the research was over 90% of marketers are saying they want tech brands that help them learn, that teach them something new. So I think that's really important. They are busy. They are under pressure. They are stressed. So they need help. But they need help to be following best practice. They don't want to be doing a bad job. I think that is a thing, but that's quite particular to marketers. They always want to be pushing to be the best in their industry and to be best in class. So anything you can do to help close that gap for them and show them where they might have new opportunities, new avenues to explore that might give a benefit to their business, help them grow quicker, make the board happier, they're going to be all over that. So I think that is really important, and it's important to be specific with that stuff. The number 2 on the list was case studies again. I don't think that's a surprise. The interesting one, that third on the list, was actually more creative campaigns. And I think that's borne out. I know there's some other data that we'll come to talk about in a minute, but showing that you as a technology brand also have a good marketing program and a good marketing team. Will resonate with the people you're trying to sell to. I think that's for MarTech companies or ad tech or retail tech companies, that's actually quite a good advantage they have, is that you are marketing to people who are like you. So you should have an advantage.
Yeah, I mean, I've had this conversation various times with sort of MarTech companies and MarTech clients. It's like, I think there can be a real focus on, analyst reports and all those things, but you are marketing to marketers, and these are people who value creativity, they enjoy creativity. All of us want to be doing more creative work, and often, even just when I look through things like LinkedIn, it's the really creative stunts, it's the picture stunts, it's the cool, memorable videos. Those are the things that have thousands, if not millions, of engagements. Because they're the scroll stopping content. They're the things that people actually pause and look at and engage with, and particularly with marketing audiences as well. That's exactly the sort of stuff that people care about,
and they want to be whoever they're working for, they want to be a brand like that as well. So match them. Meet them where they want to be, and they will listen to you more. I think it's quite clear.
It's funny because I always think as a PR agency, our clients want us to be cool and creative, but you forget that also their clients, want them to be creative. You don't think of people as going, I want to work with a tech supplier, a tech brand that is creative, but it absolutely is what stands out to marketers.
I think that there's a really clear message in here. Marketers don't want to buy from a spec sheet.
Yeah.
They're not going to buy you based on my widget does X 40% better. That's not what they're buying on. They are, to use a horrible young person phrase, they're buying on vibes a lot of the time. I realise I sound ancient when I say that.
You just said vibes.
But I think the data bears that out. They do want people that they feel comfortable with, that they feel align with their values, their approach. And if you can't do that, then it's probably not going to work as well as it could.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that also stood out from this, and it relates very strongly to that point, so you say like industry data number 1, case studies number 2, creative campaigns number 3, way down on the list, literally sort of in the towards the very bottom, thought leadership. Which is interesting because we've talked about trusted suppliers. Being creative for me often is having an opinion. Why is thought leadership ranked at 29% of CMOs said they enjoy engaging with thought leadership content? What does that mean?
I think that is simply a signal that there is a lot of bad thought leadership out there. I'm going to put thought leadership in inverted commas. I think that's the point we're at. There is so much out there that is, not to put too fine a point on it, dross.
Yeah.
AI's not made it any better.
There's a lot of AI slop now as well. But although that AI slop is trained on an internet full of bad thought leadership. So, when you tell AI, write me a thought leadership piece or a thought leadership blog, it will come up with the most bang average, trained on the bang average of thought leadership, which is not good quality. So that's got to be making it worse.
We've both been doing this job a long time. We have seen it all. We know that the dross is real. And so the fact that marketers have called bullshit on that, good. I'm glad. However, does that mean, we said earlier, over 90% of them want to work with tech brands who they consider to be experts. They want to work with people they consider to be thought leaders. So the question is...
and you said about 92% want to teach them, want to be taught new things, which surely is the goal of thought leadership when it's not in inverted commas as,
exactly.
That horrible cliche thought leadership.
It has to be good. And what does good mean? Good means it has to be original. It means it has to offer something different. It can't be something a million people have said before. That by definition, that is not thought leadership. Yeah. So you have to be prepared, and you have to do the way. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy to find those opinions that feel authentic to your brand or to your spokesperson. You've got to do the work, and you might. We've been through it with clients before. You have a few missteps along the way, and take a while to find your voice. But you can't just. It can't be a churning out content for the sake of content. That will not work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you're right that I honestly think that when CMOs have been doing this survey and filling out the research, they have seen it as thought leadership. It's almost become a bit of a joke term.
Yes.
That they still might be engaging with genuinely interesting content, genuinely interesting articles. They've said they want new opinions. They've said they want to be taught new things, but thought leadership isn't what they're looking for because, it just conjures up slightly cringy AI slop at this point.
I would quite like to do this exercise, and we've done something similar in the past, I know. But take any technology sector, whether it's marketing automation platforms, whatever it is, pick the 5 biggest companies providing that service, and just go through their website, go through their blog. I bet you there's not a lot of stuff that differentiates any of those websites.
Yeah,
and you can almost guarantee it. Obviously, there are some companies who are doing a good job, and good for them, but the majority are not, and they are missing a trick.
Yeah. I think that might even become a little bit worse, purely because I know there are a lot of people now playing the sort of GEO game, which we did. We literally did our last podcast about GEO and whether it's worth trying to game the algorithm. Spoiler, it's not. But yeah, I think there are a lot of people now who are doing what happened in the early days of SEO, and they're just writing blogs and thought leadership off the back of, this will help me rank in GEO, help me get cited by AI. And it's like, you're just adding to the to the long list of reasons why CMOs looking for actual insight are saying, not thought leadership. I'm not engaging with that.
Good thought leadership is about looking outwards from your organization and your business and what you actually sell. It's about seeing what you do in the context of the whole industry. But it's really easy to just keep focused internally at what you're doing and why that's important. And we all get wrapped up in what our companies are selling and, oh my God, it's amazing and we've really achieved something. And so you do focus on what you're doing and why that's great. But that isn't what people want to read. Fundamentally, that isn't interesting. So you have to force yourself to put what you do in the context of the wider industry or technology at large, or even outside of marketing. What does your technology, what does your service mean? How does it impact global business trends? If that isn't too grand a term, that's really what people are interested in.
Yeah. I mentioned about AI and the fact that there's obviously a sort of a bit of a drop off in possibly the standards of thought leadership with people using AI to create things. Possibly open to debate. One of the things that I did want to drill down into is there are a lot of tech brands who are targeting CMOs who are talking about being AI first. And, they're putting it very front and center of their brand that we are AI powered, we are AI first. My natural thought is that's got to have started to get a little bit tired, or is going to start to get a little bit tired soon, because everyone is doing that. Is that the case? Is that what CMOs are saying? How's that looking?
It is not the case. Marketers are loving AI.
Okay.
Is a pretty clear message from the survey. That's both in a general sense. So we've got over 80-90% of marketers saying that they are optimistic about the potential for AI in general, but also the potential for AI for the marketing discipline specifically. They are using it more themselves. Their teams are using it more. The board is expecting them to use AI more.
And from a supplier point of view or from a tech partner point of view, so they're all up for hearing AI first.
Well,
I'm being too much of a cynic. Is that what you're saying?
Basically, it's actually one of the findings that jumped out most to me as well. We asked a series of agree, disagree statements, and I was expecting most of them to be pretty straightforward, slam dunks. Yeah, we agree with that.
Yeah.
So I've got it here. So I am bored hearing about AI from tech vendors. That was the statement. Fully expecting to hear agreement.
Yeah.
Over 50% of marketers said they disagree with that statement.
Wow.
So 1 in 2 marketers have not heard enough about AI yet from tech vendors, which blows my mind. I don't know how that is possible, but it goes to show that we are in a position where we have heard too much of it, but we are not the people buying these products. So
CMOs want to hear more about AI. Fair enough.
But I think it's important to maybe just put some nuance on that. I think looking at some of the other data, is AI the number one thing that's influencing a purchase? Is the AI story about your product or the AI roadmap you have for your service or your platform the number one thing? No. So I obviously you need to have an AI story. Definitely. This technology isn't going anywhere. Marketers are big users of it. They want to use more of it. So your platform needs to offer that capability.
Yeah.
But when it really boils down to, am I going to buy product A or product B, AI suddenly slips down the list a little bit. So it has to be on the list. It's really important you have an AI story, but it's not the story. Yeah. It's not your entire story about what your technology product is. I think that's a really important nuance to understand.
Well, I mean, one of the other things that stood out for me just in the report was 63% of CMOs say brands focus too much on features over outcomes. And I think I remember there were a few like that about they want people to talk more about ROI. They want people to talk more about what they get from this. So, I mean, I know that's not a direct question about AI, but I feel like it sort of falls into the same camp, doesn't it? Of, yes, talk about the features you have. You have AI. I remember when the cloud was a really big thing and everyone started going, oh, our software's in the cloud. And it's like, that's lovely. And for a very brief period in time, that is newsworthy. But realistically, as a PR person speaking, that's infrastructure. And we are very rapidly going to reach a point where AI is infrastructure. And the idea that you're going, look at my infrastructure, isn't it great? Is like, as you say, yes, that's good. But tell me how that benefits me. Why does that impact my business? Why is that good for me? What's the benefits? Because ultimately, there is a point where AI is a feature, not a benefit. Ultimately,
yeah, and I think it's also the case of. I think a lot of the messaging you see around AI is we have it now.
Yeah,
great, good for you. But I think what marketers as buyers of technology want to see is what's next.
Yeah,
and I think that's much more important. And once you start to look ahead, it is about how AI either is integrated with other technologies or is the thing that integrates technologies for you or whatever that might be and kind of makes things more sophisticated and more connected and more efficient. And it's those things that are more important. And again, it does come back to what have you done for me lately?
Yeah,
sort of thing. The fact that you have AI built into your product or you are built from the ground up with AI in mind, whatever the phrases people use at the minute, that isn't going to last. There needs to be a roadmap. There needs to be a vision for the future. And that's the AI story that people are buying into, not we have AI.
Well, the other thing that makes me laugh slightly is, yes, so, okay, CMOs are saying They want to work with AI first brands. They're not sick of AI messaging. They want to buy tools that will allow them to use AI. But there was also a stat in here about the fact that 60% say AI has made content all sound the same. So CMOs are getting fed up of seeing and reading AI generated content from these tech suppliers, from tech brands. How do those two things line up?
No one ever said your audience had to be rational or logical.
Okay.
It does amuse me, the hypocrisy of that. Obviously, when I use AI, it's really good. When you use AI, it's really bad. I think that
I think
that's a perfectly human response.
Yeah, while I obviously sort of go, oh, that's quite funny, I'm probably in the exact same boat. Like, I absolutely want to use AI. I want us to have tools that are AI powered, but also every single time that I see copy that's really, it's not this, it's that, and it's just clearly AI generated, I am like, oh, that is just a bit rubbish. Like,
but it comes with the conversation we're having about thought leadership. There's good AI and bad AI.
Yeah.
There are people who have used it very well to sharpen their story, to increase the scale of what they're able to do and to reach more people more effectively. And then there are people who are using it to produce slop.
Yeah. Obviously, we're a PR agency. I need to talk about media relations as well. It's a big part of what we do. I was really pleased to see that in the report, CMOs are still engaging with a lot of media. I think we even had a sort of list of what media they're engaging with. Is there anything you can tell us about what works from a media relations standpoint and what doesn't? Is there any sort of news that they are specifically engaging with or not?
I think there's two. First of all, in terms of the actual media they're engaging with, it was really encouraging to see that the trade media is quite prominent in terms of what they're actually reading. Obviously, big national, big business media are in the mix, of course. I understand that. But Marketing Week's in there, even some of the lesser known trade media, Martech Magazine, things like that.
Yeah.
They're in the top 10, top 12 most read publications of marketers. So ignore them at your peril would be my advice on that. So, and obviously to our talk about geo and people using AI for search, we know that the media has a big impact on that, and good media coverage makes you more prominent in AI search. So absolutely the media is incredibly valuable on multiple levels, not just in terms of getting coverage. In terms of what is cutting through and what they're finding most engaging when they're reading those publications, I think what was really interesting was number one was unique opinions. Again, people with something interesting and new to say. Not news, not product news. That's much further down the list. It's much more about being able to express your view, your vision for the future. That's what people are really engaging with, or being able to engage with the hot topic of the day and bring a new perspective, a new way of thinking about something that is taken for granted maybe. Obviously, there's loads of ways you could cut that, but that's absolutely number one. And then you look at the bottom of the list, and I think this is a really important thing to remember, because I know so much of the time we put a lot of effort into news and new partnerships, and we've just signed up such and such onto the platform and things like that. Those are absolutely bottom of the lowest interest.
Well, okay.
But again, I wouldn't dismiss that. I think it's a question of where you're weighting your resources. Because obviously, if someone is really seriously considering your product and they come to your website or they search on AI or on Google or whatever, and there's nothing out there about what you've been doing lately, and you seemingly haven't updated your platform since 2005 or whatever, that would be mad. Obviously, you need to have a stream of news that is there when people need it, but it's not the thing you push front and center. So it's about where are you putting your resources, and it's very easy to put more resources into the news pipeline because there's a process, there's a way of doing it, and being able to publish a press release feels good. Oh, we did a thing and now it's in the public domain. But it's not what's cutting through. It's not what's affecting people's actual purchase decision. It's maybe what's getting you on the list,
Yeah.
but it's not what's getting you over the top in terms of being the one selected.
And I suppose that's worth saying as well, that like obviously, you know, this is about what CMOs are looking for, who often are that key purchase decision maker. You know, the fact that you've got ISO whatever, you know, you've got the right certifications, that is important, and there will be plenty of people who are going through that procurement process and that buying process who need to be able to find that quickly. But yeah, in terms of what is engaging, what news do CMOs specifically actually read, that makes total sense. That you know, yeah, it is the real stuff and the opinions, and it's also, I mean, there were a couple of things you mentioned there that I wanted to pick up on. I mean, it's great to hear that trade press is alive and well in this age. Like, that's fantastic, and I think marketing is one of those. I've worked with a lot of MarTech brands. It is one of those areas where there is a good amount of press still alive and well. There are plenty of people running blogs and Substacks and all sorts of little sort of industry websites and publications that are genuinely have a really big readership amongst this audience. So that's great to see. And then the other thing I wanted to pick up on was you mentioned about the value for AI search as well. So I think there was literally a stat in the report about 46% of CMOs use AI to research new suppliers and get recommendations. I mean, that's huge. That's almost sort of 1 in 2 are now going to ChatGPT or whatever it is and going, okay, give me a list of potential vendors for this thing.
Yep.
You know, that is massive. So again, I had a chat on the last one of these podcasts about how you do GEO and how important media relations is for that. So clearly there's a really big role to play in that regard as well.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good it connects everything we've been talking about so far. What is a journalist interested in? And if you think about it in those terms, they're interested in new, novel, unusual, surprising, all the things, all the classic things that journalists are interested in. So if you can put what you do in those terms and in that context and connect it to wider issues and wider topics that journalists are already writing about, you're ticking boxes all the way down. You're going to have better content on your website. You're going to have better coverage results. Yeah. You're going to appear in more search results and more AI search results. And just generally, you are going to be connecting and resonating with marketers more strongly. So that whole thing, having that media, that journalist mindset can be really powerful in terms of, is this the right thing to do, or should we be doing it this way?
Yeah, it makes me laugh. People always refer, there's a term that gets used for talking about the media and journalists as like gatekeepers. Like, we're trying to reach an audience and the audience is their readers, and we've got to get through these pesky gatekeepers. And it's like, those gatekeepers are insisting that the things that you create are interesting and eye-catching and all those things that you just said. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want your content or your PR to be all those things? This shouldn't be we've got to make it interesting in order to trick journalists to write about it. It's like, why don't you make it interesting so that your audience enjoys reading it and engaging with it?
Absolutely.
Like, we need to stop talking about journalists as gatekeepers and start, just going, if anything, it's a good sanity check of, is this interesting to ask, would a journalist care?
Definitely.
I think we've got to do a lot more of that. We've talked a lot about a lot of different data in this report. If there was one key takeaway, if there was one key thing that, if I was a MarTech brand or an ad tech brand or a retail tech brand, whoever it is targeting a CMO, what is the big piece of information that I should take away from this report?
I think the main thing is differentiation matters.
Yeah.
That's really what all of this research boils down to in my mind. And the data backs up. We've got 86% of marketers want to be bolder themselves in their own role. 96% said they want to work with technology brands who are also creative. And then they said 88% said that brands who take creative risks are the one that stand out the most. Okay. So being different, not just being another blue logo software company, is really important if you want to cut through, if you want to resonate with the audience you're targeting. Now, the other key finding is are technology brands currently doing this? And it's a strong no. 60% of marketers said that basically all technology brands look and sound the same. 56% said that their messaging is, neither here nor there sort of thing. The brands are not meeting the people they're trying to target in the middle here. They're not doing their bit of the equation. They're too conservative. They're too happy to either do what they've always done or to sort of go with the flow, go with the crowd. And that's not the winning strategy, unfortunately, for them. The data is pretty clear that being different, having something unique to your brand is really the ultimate thing that is going to influence a marketer's decision of whether to buy your product or not.
Yeah.
John Hegarty has been banging on about this for years. He always talks about how typically people talk about creativity as risky, and he hates that word. And he's basically, when he worked at BBH,
taking a creative risk. Yeah.
He's basically banned people he works with from using that word. And I know exactly where he's coming from. If this data tells us anything, is that the risky option is to not try and be more creative.
Yeah. Because
you're just going to be ignored. And as I say, people will move on to another option and see if that works for them. As I say, being more creative, getting out of your comfort zone, trying something different is actually the logical, rational thing to do, not the risky thing to do.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point to end on. Thank you for your time today. The last thing I was going to ask about was you mentioned about the fact that CMO Decoded is the first of a series. What have we got planned next?
So the next audience we're focusing on is CIOs, and so looking much more at people who are buying big enterprise IT platforms, whatever form that might take.
Fantastic. Cool. Well, as I said, thank you so much for this. It's been great. In terms of finding the CMO Decoded report, you can find that on the Wildfire website. We'll include a link in the description below. And yeah, thank you again.
My pleasure.
Cheers.